Greetings. This is Attorney Della Welch, and our subject today is Introduction to Family Law. Now, one thing that's very important if you're planning a divorce is to find out if there is a family law specialist in your area. A specialist is someone who not only passed the bar, but they took a specialty exam, so they're very expert in divorce law. Check with your area, check with your county bar or state bar or Google and see if you can find a specialist. Usually when you speak with an attorney, the initial exam is free. So I would recommend that you talk with a specialist and get a overview in terms of what they would charge and what would be involved, because a specialist has excellent training. Now, one thing that's important to know is the basis for a divorce in California. The one that's most common is irreconcilable differences. I call it a no-fault divorce. Now, if you think of what's happening in divorce, about 1 out of every 2 marriages ends in divorce. In California, 60% of the marriages are ending in divorce. So with this COVID disease that has been going around, some people say there are 30% more divorces. And as an attorney handling divorce cases for clients, I'm aware that the courts are very congested. There's a need for more and more family law judges, and you may have to wait several months for your court date to take your turn. But this no-fault divorce is the main reason. I also practice family law in Utah, and Utah, the basis at that time was mental cruelty. So I'd have to put acts of mental cruelty on the record to prove my case that my client was entitled to a divorce. So to get a divorce in California, you just put an X in the box of irreconcilable differences. Another basis is incurable insanity, but very few divorces are based on that particular area. Now, it's important on each item of property to look at that property and say, was it acquired during marriage? In which case it's community property. I had one case where the husband said, I went to work every day 8 to 5, and my wife sat on the couch every day 8 to 5. And I said, well, she still owns half of the community property if it was acquired during marriage. So even though she wasn't working and was sitting on the couch, she had her community property share. Separate property would be property that was acquired before marriage or had a separate property source. So you need to know also not only the property, whether it's community or separate, but you need to look at debts. Was the debt acquired during marriage? So it's a community property debt. Or was it a separate property debt in which your spouse would be liable? So after you characterize property and debts, you should look at the value of the marital property. Right now, homes are much more valuable than they have been in the past. However, I'm aware that interest rates are rising, and if that keeps going upward and upward, the homes will be worth less money. So there are appraisers that can put a value on the community property home, or you can examine Zillow or Trulia or other things like that to get a value, and you and your partner can agree on a value. And then you can decide how to divide the community property and how to divide the debts. And there's certain common issues that arise in divorce. There's spousal support, child support, attorney fees, and child visitation and custody. And in California, there are 730 evaluators where an expert is appointed to determine custody. If you don't like that, then a 733 expert can be appointed. There's certain counselors available from the court that help determine those issues, and there's certain fees for these counselors. There's also what they call vocational experts to determine what a wife can earn if she worked. We have a wife who's been home several years, but what can she work and what can she earn? When I first became an attorney in 1982 doing family law, it was $500 to get a vocational expert evaluation of a spouse. Now I just heard of one case where it was $3,000. So we see a big ballooning of costs. And then attorney fees in 1982 were about $100 an hour or $125 an hour, and now they're about $500 an hour. Sometimes you can get an attorney for less. That's why many people are doing self-help, researching the topics on Google, going to self-help clinics, because they find that they cannot afford a divorce attorney. What you want to have is an attorney that is very experienced, has handled your case and issues like it over and over again. You might ask the attorney, what can you expect from a divorce like this? What are the strong points of my case? What are the weak points of my case? What recommendations do you have in this case? And give it a lot of effort. If you work hard, you should get a very good result. This is the end of the recording on Introduction to Family Law.